So this is the playroom, and I wanted to tell you a little bit about why play is such a big deal. There's some videos and lectures and things you can find online that do a really good job of articulating it, but I'm just going to give you a fast explanation. Um, People like adults and older teenagers, they can process things that they're experiencing, things that they're learning, what's going on internally. They can do that by talking about it. And although kids can talk about things, they can't process in the same way that adults can. And talk will not necessarily produce meaningful change in kids. So they do it by playing. And all the toys that you see behind me are different kind of toys that we use in something called play therapy. So play therapy is a way to have very powerful and meaningful interactions in this mode that kids process their thoughts and feelings and experiences. So you'll see behind me there's lots of different kinds of toys. There's toys for being able to be aggressive, for being able to be nurturing, for demonstrating mastery or capability. And there's a lot of these things that in play therapy we would call themes. And those themes are things that we look for, how those themes come up and how they get resolved and what happens in those themes, what's the context of them. And we're looking at the kind of the pattern over time of what kids do in those themes. So it's not, in play therapy, it's not a secret code of like, somebody picks up a fireman toy and we go, oh no, you're being abused. It's more a process of sort of a breadcrumb trail, connecting the dots of what they're showing us, what they're telling us about what their worldview is, their experience of the world. So in play, you actually enter a completely different mode than you do in just kind of normal life. You enter this very vulnerable state, and there's some really interesting research that's been done on that shows that when you play, you're more emotionally vulnerable, and it actually sort of cancels out fight or flight. Those two conditions can't coexist. You can't be playful and have fight or flight. You can't have fight or flight and be playful. They'll cancel each other out. There was a study done by a guy named Jaak Panksepp about animals, and specifically rats, how when they were exposed to stress, they would stop playing. And then animals that stopped playing for a long time or had prolonged stress that didn't play showed a lot of signs of aggression and impulse control problems and lots of issues. To be honest, we see those in us when we don't play, when kids don't play, when teenagers don't play. And play doesn't look the same for everybody. Of course, there's lots of different kinds. So there's sports kind of playing, and rough and tumble sort of play, and pretend play, and play that has no rules at all. It's just completely unstructured and based on imagination. There's being creative and making things. There's lots of kinds. So when I say play, I don't mean a specific kind necessarily, although it really looks like imaginative and pretend play with less structure has the most benefit for the brain. One of the things that we found in doing play therapy is that more regions of your brain are activated in play than any other activity. And that's really good news. That gives us access to places in the brain that maybe are not active. Maybe you have trouble activating a region of your brain, but in play it becomes active. And so we could actually get access to it in those moments, which is really powerful. And play, when you observe it, it's not that you'll always see something very concrete. Sometimes it's just very metaphorical, though sometimes there are very concrete things. I've had many kids that I work with who play out exactly something that they saw or experienced, whereas other kids might do it more metaphorically. So you might have a kid who was in a car accident, literally play with cars and be driving them around and crashing them together and showing what they experienced. But you may have them instead just have characters or figures that are in scary, tense situations, and it's just a metaphor. So all that to say, there is a lot going on in play that if you slow down and spend some time watching your kids, you can actually begin to look at what kind of things are they playing, how do they play, what's it look like when they play. Probably the most important thing you could do, if there was one thing I would tell you to do as a parent or as a family, that would be make sure that you guard some time to be playing with your kids. I'll get into that in another video and tell you more why. But there's so much that we transmit and so much that's happening in playing that you really don't want to miss that. If there was only one thing you could do in your family, I would say that would be way at the top of the list, is make sure you're playing together as a family, not watching them play, that you're playing together in some way and saving time for that. Okay, well, we'll talk some more about play. We'll talk some more about lots of things as we go. That's it for now. Hope you're doing well. Hope to see you soon.